Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. We are having some technical difficulties as it goes. So it shows that, not just ag tech is hard, but so is enterprise technology. My name is Danny Bernstein, and I am the founder of the Reservoir. And so I'm going to be multitasking a little bit, just to make sure that we get everyone in here this morning. I am actually in the Midwest of the United States right now. I'm in Fargo, North Dakota. You can look that up on a map. Probably now most famous for a great movie, maybe about 15 years ago, and a subsequent television show. Normally, I'm in California, and so what we're really excited to talk to you about today is the reservoir and reservoir farms and this project that we've been working on. I had the really special opportunity to visit the Netherlands earlier this year, and I think meet a lot of you in person and learn and gather kind of context for how we might think about partnering with international companies. And I think a lot of the way that we're thinking about this goal is when you think about bringing your technology to the United States, we would love to be your first call. And we think that being able to plug into a community of other ag tech companies, of growers, of corporations is a really special opportunity. So we built Reservoir to really be that thing. And so welcome to our first webinar. I think we would have Josephine providing a welcome to you all, but I think she's probably having some technical difficulties of her own, kind of joining as a panelist. So when she does join, we'll have the phenomenal Josephine, who I'm sure many of you know, and it's the reason you're here, sort of getting this call together. We're also hoping to see Matt Hoffman, who is we're in the process of inviting by way of a different email. And I just texted that to you, Gonzalo, so you should have it in your WhatsApp. So you can use that to invite Matt. And and so this is our agenda. So we're going to go through this, and we'll be able definitely to take some time for questions in the chat. So you can already kind of start to think about those. And I expect really good hard questions, because I know that that's what I got when I was in the Netherlands. Sort of that candor and I really appreciate that. So I'll get into it. Let me talk a little bit about what we're doing. So Reservoir Farms is designed to be an open air specialty crop startup incubator. Of course, the Dutch are so well known for controlled environment, and the controlled environment will capital the world when it comes to innovation and of course your incredible export efficiency. There's so much that we can learn from the Dutch ecosystem. So I think a goal even for the reservoirs to kind of be able to establish shared learning channels between us and other ecosystems. The United States, especially California in particular, is very well known for efficiency around specialty crops, around both bedded and permanent crops. So the focus of the reservoir is not trying to be all things to all people, but really focused on innovation in robotics and automation for open air specialty crop agriculture. These are some of the stories that we track, and there's a significant level of relevance to California's high value crop or specialty crop ecosystem. It actually crossed 60 billion this year for the first time in ag receipts. But there are significant challenges. So even as it grows, there continue to be major headwinds. And I'll pick out a few of these. One is the asparagus. In the last 25 years or so, the California asparagus has all but disappeared. It's becoming increasingly too expensive to grow. There are labor challenges, there are regulatory challenges, there are climate-related challenges. Something like the California garlic, which you can see there, that's grown about an hour from where I live. It's grown in Gilroy, California, sort of the garlic capital of the world. You drive through Gilroy and you can smell garlic without even rolling down the windows. But even something like garlic, where we provide 99% of the nation's garlic, we're losing acreage there as well. And there's a lot that's been written, especially with this administration and the sort of head-scratching policies towards labor, that we have more and more challenges finding people to do the work. And there are challenges with with sort of immigration status, with our visa system. And meanwhile, we have to grow food for the world and grow food for the United States. So we have a unpicked inventories. We have increased regulatory challenges. And our perspective is that what we can control is the technology and the innovation. There are a lot of uncontrollables here. But we do think that the role of the reservoir is basically to help startups be more successful. And there's a lot of opportunity in specialty crops, open air agriculture, to bring more technology. We focus on three areas in particular. We focus on robotics and automation, we focus on software, and we focus on precision tools. There are lots of other wonderful environments to test genetics and biologicals and herbicides and things like that. I think biologicals is a natural one for us in the future, but our primary focus is on these areas. When we looked at, we studied the sort of the plight of the ag tech startup in a lot of detail. And there's sort of some common refrains about ag tech, and that people say, gosh, it's really hard because of the cyclicality. It's really hard because you need, oh, there's Matt. Hey, Matt. People say it's hard because it's really difficult to validate in one season. It's capital deprived. And all these things are accurate, but what they don't reflect is that there are actually optimizations that can be done to make this better. And I think that's a very kind of Dutch, characteristic, which is that if you go through a place like Food Valley, or if you walk through Wageningen, you feel like there's an innovation sort of restlessness. There's a feeling like this can be done better, this can be done better. And I think that we really take that approach when it comes to open air, which is that we just don't have a sense of complacency. We began to realize that startups were really struggling to access fields, and even at the beginning, kind of just an initial test plot of 1 acre. We also found that startups would be located maybe 100+ miles away from the environments that they really needed to be in. And unlike in the Netherlands, where most ag tech companies are kind of either in Food Valley or an hour away, startups in the west of the United States are really spread everywhere. There's one in this town, there's one in that town, and it might be that you have to drive 4 or 5 hours to meet another ag tech entrepreneur. So we started to study this, and we thought there's a better way. And that's where we began to develop this idea for Reservoir Farms. And we're going to hear from Matt Hoffman from Driscoll's, who was one of the earliest people that we consulted about this opportunity. And Matt and I really had some great lively discussions about kind of how to approach these different problems a while ago. So we're going to hear from Matt. What we looked at basically is that there are over 7,000 startup incubators in the world. So incubators are not a new thing. But we were basically saying is that we want to do something very specific. We want to combine a open air specialty crop farm with a space for robotics development and testing, and that was a sort of a new and different approach. And that's where we came from. We came to this concept. And Matt, I think you should be good to go because you're showing for me. So I think Matt, do you want to try saying hi to everyone? Your audio is not working. That's the problem. Okay. Maybe Gonzalo and Grace, you guys can text with Matt and see if we can help him out, or else he'll have to do really incredible hand motions, or I'll have to interpret what Matt's saying because I know him pretty well. So we'll work on that. So what we basically are rolling out is a deep tech space to work on open air specialty crop opportunities. And the pitch basically to companies is a few things. One is come to California. We'll try to make it as easy as possible. We'll try to reduce friction. And so what we do is that if you join as a member, you get access to a shop and access to a farm immediately upon joining. And then we introduce you to growers. We introduce you to corporations like John Deere or Oxbow or others. I mean, you may know Oxbow because, of course, they're a Dutch company, but the California version. And we also have access to validation capabilities. We recently brought on a major UC Davis professor, Stavros, who is kind of thought of in the same plane as a lot of the top robotics folks at Wageningen, and they all know each other, of course. And we are going to be designing reservoir orchestrated trials, both at a kind of a single plot level, but also at a multi-plot level. And then when you come out, we believe that you'll be fitter, that you'll have moved faster than you otherwise would have, and that you're able to compress time and advance more quickly. This is a list of the capabilities that we offer. Let's kind of touch on a few. Access to growers. We also we offer access to farm, access to facilities and things like that. And we're going to be adding more and more services over time. Um, I'll speak a little bit to kind of the location. So California is, of course, a massive place. It's the world's fourth largest economy by output. And we also have over 600 commodities. We have a vast array of commodities, but there are some big ones. Besides dairy, which is our largest commodity, almonds are a massive commodity. Grapes are after that. But there are quite a few, sort of other commodities as well that are worth mentioning. So in Salinas, which is the central coast of California, it's really known for leafy greens, vegetables, and strawberries. That's really what this area is most known for. Um, Second, and the is looking at Sonoma. So Sonoma is part of our wine country, and so we are opening a dedicated facility to really focus um, on the wine grape segment. And then another one that we just leased a 60-acre farm in the Central Valley of California. So we are able to offer access to kind of our largest growing region, which is famous for almonds and stone fruit, sort of miles and miles of beautiful orchards of permanent crops. It's also known for tomatoes in the ground as well, where you have these huge producers like Morningstar and others. And then lastly, Yuma, which is the desert. So there's a lot of discussion on a global scale right now about arid environments, or that they're sort of growing in desert environments. And of course, that's what's brought a lot of Dutch expertise to the Middle East. And from an open air perspective, really the center of that innovation is in a town called Yuma, Arizona. And some of the lettuce processing capabilities in Salinas actually transfer to Yuma in the winter. They literally pack up the processing facility and load it onto trucks and then bring it to Yuma in the winter. So for a period of the year in the winter, Yuma becomes the center of the sort of specialty crop universe, which is kind of neat. And so this is our platforming for companies that want to access California and really want to be part of these communities. Community is a big thing for us. I can only imagine sort of what it must feel like to leave the Netherlands, this incredible place, and build a commercialization strategy for a place like California. That's got to be pretty intimidating and pretty challenging. So a part of the reservoir is really kind of leading with that empathy and those values. And so what we've done is we've designed Reservoir really as a community, as a village. And we use the metaphor of village a lot. We talk about how can Reservoir be a walkable ag tech village. And so in Salinas in particular, this is really a special town, which is really all about ag. And you can see just the density of innovation within about a 5 or 10 minute drive, in some cases just a brisk walk, you can reach Driscoll's, universities, the Western Growers Innovation Center, the largest vegetable producer in the world, which is Taylor Farms, Duda, Nature Ripe, Fresh Express, etc. And our innovation center is right smack dab in the middle of all that, which is by design. So it's this idea basically that if you're kind of thinking to yourself, gosh, I'm interested in California, but how do I navigate this landscape? We're really designing this to work well, to be really smooth, and that you can really plug in. So we leased a 40-acre farm from the Tanamura family at the beginning of June. We did a groundbreaking event in August, and now we're starting to open up. I would say by the spring, if you're coming to California in the spring, this will feel like kind of a flourishing ag tech community that we're describing. I mentioned the what's on offer, which is leafy greens, vegetables, and strawberries. Driscoll's has been a part of this, as well as Nature-Right Berry Growers, which is a really large a grower in the Salinas area, really all throughout California. And we'll have 5 acres of open-air strawberries, which will be available for testing, which is really special for a startup to get access to even half an acre of berries for testing is unusual and really challenging, and we're trying to make that available to folks right when they come to the reservoir. So this is a bit of a feel for kind of the community, and we'll be sharing more and more pictures versus illustrations in the coming months. You can see the adjacency of the community to the farm itself and kind of the feeling. This is a rendering of our Central Valley location, similar in feel, except we'll also be building a very large sort of robotic slash simulation facility there. And then I mentioned the presence of corporations. So one of our partners is John Deere, and John Deere will have a active physical presence at the farm for the purposes of making their technology available. Yesterday, I actually spoke to the Chief Technology Officer of John Deere, and we talked about what are the technologies that we can make available to startups to help them on their way and to help them move faster and sort of reduce some of the spin. An example is that John Deere has done a really significant integration with NVIDIA. And so they have sort of rugged GPUs, and that's something that we're talking about. Gosh, how can we make that available to startups so they're not reinventing the wheel and they can focus on sort of their magic versus having to build the entire stack? So a reservoir will also be a place where you'll be able to interact with corporations. And so this is an opportunity to check in with Matt. Matt, how's your audio? Is it working or not yet? Doesn't look like it. Does that say no? Unmute me, please. I think you are unmuted. I don't think there is a mute option for you. So we may not have Matt today. That's unfortunate, but if we're having some just audio challenges and it's not quite working. So I know, Matt, you have to run in 10 minutes, and I apologize for the stress. I owe you one here, but I don't know if we'll be able to troubleshoot in real time here. So but Matt and I were talking a little bit this morning and last night, and one thing that Driscoll's, I'll just speak a little bit about what we're talking about here while we're having some challenges. But Driscoll's is really part of the ag tech community here. They want to meet companies, they want to provide feedback. They also want to be really clear on what are the challenges they're running into. And so something that does really consistently is that he makes available kind of himself and the sort of the Driscoll's ecosystem, and so they really want to know they really want the ag tech ecosystem to know what their challenges are, and they're not shy about that. And so that's something that Matt talks about a lot, and that his team talks about quite a bit. I think the other thing that Matt and I have talked about a lot is that they want to see startups not reinventing the wheel. And so the part of like the big part of why I think I'm so impressed by something like Food Valley is that interactivity, that collaboration. And to have sort of a open air version of Food Valley where you have companies being able to connect with each other and share ideas and collaborate is a really special thing. And we want to catalyze that sort of activity. And I know it's something that Driscoll's also is something that we are, that they've been encouraging as well. So, Matt, I really appreciate you being here. I think that your physical presence, your digital presence, is a symbol of your support of initiatives like this, and that Driscoll is such a big part of the ag tech ecosystem, and plus their berries are really delicious. So, so thank you, Matt, for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and I owe you one, and we'll talk very soon. All right, Josephine, is your audio working?
I hope so.
Yes, it is. Okay, great. All right.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, Josephine, do you want to just, introduce yourself to the group and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I am Josephine, and I work for the Dutch technology branch organizations, which you wouldn't say as my camera didn't work just a while back, but now it's working. I just want to introduce a little bit about how we met. I'm not sure if you already thought this. So we actually met last year during an innovation mission in California, which we went with a group of entrepreneurs of about 20 people to California. And then back in January this year, we met in the Netherlands, where we have seen some field labs, some incubators. And I think it's really, really interesting and impressive of what you have established until now, which is just such a short notice. And I'm very happy to present you to the Dutch entrepreneurs now. Which, yeah, I really hope that maybe in this year or maybe next year we can, I don't know, come to the Reservoir farms to see what you have already done with your team. So yeah, interested in how the entrepreneurs or Dutch entrepreneurs now see opportunities to go to the reservoir, and how we can help in that sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josephine. Yeah, you and your colleagues have been extraordinarily collaborative, and we really believe in the power of collaboration. I think this is a time when sort of America's place in the world is confusing to a lot of our international partners, even confusing to a lot of American citizens.
Yeah.
And so this opportunity to kind of have industry build bridges that I think will last sort of through the ebbs and flows of different governments is actually a core value of the reservoir. Like we really want to build bridges. Um, and so, yeah, it's been wonderful to get to know you and the team. And thank you, of course, for hosting me in the Netherlands. I hope to at least come once a year. So this is our Q&A portion. And I see that there are a couple of questions in the chat, and so I encourage you to ask more. Um, and um, and so let's look. So a question is, who is the contact in the Netherlands? As we Farmer Tonics would like to have a talk. Great. You're anonymous, but I assume that's from Farmer Tonics. So good question. So we will share the contact information of our startup outreach team. I think it's at the end. There you go. So here you can see kind of how to get in touch. So we have two people, Pat and Gonzalo, who are really dedicated to answering startup questions of all varieties. And there are lots of questions, especially if you're thinking about coming from abroad. And so so you can see here kind of how to connect with them. These are their personal phone numbers, so they're really available, and I appreciate what they do. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. The next question is, how about protection of intellectual property? If a startup brings out a prototype for testing, are other oh, and Pat's actually encouraging me to mention that they will be at World Agritech UK in 2 weeks. So if you're thinking about attending World Agritech, which is a great conference, especially to meet capital allocators. A lot of the venture capital community, banking community attends that conference. It's not a deep tech conference like FIRA or the equivalent, but it is a great place, World Agritech, to meet capital allocators. So Pat and Gonzalo will be there, and you guys should grab a cup of coffee. Next question, how about protection of intellectual property? If a startup brings out a prototype for testing, are other customers of the reservoir able to see that? That's a great question. It really depends on what your level of concern is. If you are concerned about any startup seeing your prototype, like the physical hardware of your prototype, the reservoir might not be the place for you. What we can advise on is other testing environments that are, let's say, better suited to companies who want no one to lay eyes on their machine. Our general perspective, which can be debated, is that most of the intellectual property now is in the software. And so, that in that environment, we feel comfortable sort of saying, yeah, as long as you're not operating in a shared code base with a partner or with another customer, you should be well protected on IP. But if you're really innovating specifically around hardware design and you feel like your core IP is in the intricacies of your hardware design or your mechanization, then Reservoir may not be the right place for you because it really is designed to be kind of that collaborative environment. I hope that answers your question. Um, Krishna is asking, Mr. Bernstein, that's my father's name. Call me Danny. You mentioned hubs in Salinas, Sonoma, and the Central Valley. How do you see those different locations complementing each other in terms of testing, robotics, and automation? Will there be, okay, so that's question number one. Let me answer that. So I think the thing to know about these four locations is that the commodities are different. And so we really designed them to be, and that's actually this illustration from Grace, which is amazing, actually really illustrates this, which is that Salinas is about leafy greens, vegetables, and strawberries. Sonoma is about wine grapes. Merced is about almonds, pistachios, stone fruit, cherries, table grapes, tomatoes, and a few others. And then Yuma is really, think of it like Salinas, but in the winter. So they are very complementary. And so what we imagine though is that some companies might want to go back and forth. So for example, a lot of companies that work in wine grapes end up also working in tree nuts as well. And so it may be that you spend 6 months in Sonoma and then you spend 6 months in Merced. That's something that we imagine happening quite a bit. Will there be any scope for college students to be involved in the testing process, particularly UC students? So, short answer is yes. We are developing workforce development programs from the University of California perspective, yes, with UC Merced, with UC Davis, to an extent with UC A&R as well. And then we also are working very closely with the local kind of trade schools. We call them community colleges. And they are also involved in what we're doing because ag tech kind of needs that hands-on sort of capabilities as well. Um, the last question that is in the chat is, can you speak about funding possibilities within your activity? And is that also coupled to the Netherlands? Yeah, so it's a great question. So one of the areas that we provide feedback is kind of on the sort of investor community side, on the public or non-dilutive funding side. So we're happy to consult on that. I think your colleagues like Josephine in the Netherlands are also great resources for that to kind of say, hey, here's sort of the grant ecosystem. Here specifically are ones that are tuned towards export opportunities. And then we're, of course, very well connected with the sort of the venture capital community here. And so it's something that we want to find ways to support and kind of make that not the issue that you can't be here. We want to be able to help if we can. Excellent. I think those are the questions that we have for today. And I
Yeah,
want to
Danny, can you maybe explain a little bit more on what are the costs of being part of the reservoir?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of different options depending on where your company is sort of in your journey. We've designed a entry-level tier, which is about 2,500 US dollars per month. And what that gets you basically is access to the farm, access to our shops, and then access to a place that your company can be. And so think of it like if you were to come to the US, you'd have to rent an office and then you'd have to kind of find storage and you have to find a shop and all these things. And inevitably, it would cost more than $2,500. So what we're trying to say is you can get all these things in one place, plus you're part of the village, you're part of the community. For companies that are later stage, maybe they've already raised $1 million US dollars in venture capital, we have a next tier up that's about 5,000 US dollars, and it kind of goes from there. But we're really focusing on how early stage companies can get here, and we're really trying to make it economical.
Yeah, thanks.
Hmm.
Good to know.
Yeah. Are there any more questions? Doesn't look like it at the moment. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. We're really excited in particular to find ways to collaborate with the Dutch ag tech ecosystem really over a long period of time. And we feel like there's so much we can learn from the Dutch ecosystem, and we hope that over time there's a lot more knowledge exchange. I think where we feel particularly strong is on open air. And so part of why we're focused on open air versus controlled environment is that we do have controlled environment innovation in California, but I would say go to the Netherlands. That, and I would hope that we kind of think of it in reverse as well, where we have incredible sort of open air capability with partners like Driscoll's or Taylor Farms and Nature Ripe and Tanner Moore Ansel and others. So think of us for California market entry. Think of us for just learning about open air and kind of being plugged into that ecosystem. Also, kind of we have a deep tech ecosystem here as well, where it's worth mentioning that our locations are only about an hour from Silicon Valley. So if you're thinking, you want to have exposure to Silicon Valley and you want to have exposure to agriculture, our Salinas location is, 90 minutes from Google, an hour from NVIDIA, for example. And I think that's something that's really special about what we're doing is that we're trying to combine some of the best of both worlds as well. So thank you again for your time. Here's the contact information for Pat and Gonzalo. Thank you guys for bringing this together. Thank you to Josephine. Thank you to really the whole Dutch ecosystem for being open to what we're doing. And we look forward to meeting you and getting to know you better over time. This will be recorded and we'll send out the recording as well. Apologies for the last minute zoominess. And we'll talk soon, everybody. Thank you so much.